are 4,315,275,402 Alabama football podcasts on the internet. And now you get to ignore every single one. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. Real talk from real fans. We gump to a standard around here. Recapping the Alabama Crimson Tide and college football from around the SEC and across the nation. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. And here are your hosts, Bill Sylvie, Jessica Brand, John Henry, and Bo Gnora.
And good evening and roll tide. How's everybody doing? I hope everyone has had an absolutely fantastic week and enjoyed the heck out of 3 quarters of solid Alabama Crimson Tide football. Let's bring in a couple of our co-hosts. We are still waiting on one person to enter the green room, but good evening, John Henry. Roll Tide. How the heck are you, brother?
Hardy roll tide to you. It was strange that it was such a short game.
Yeah, I've never seen a college ball game play for 3 quarters only. I walked the dog for an extended period of time, and I come back and Alabama had won, and I can only presume that Arkansas put up some trash points, but let's not go too deep into it just yet and say hello to Bo Gnora. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I cannot complain, my friend. I cannot complain. So, the game. Because it was a game of the college football games played this past week. That was one of them. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what went down in Suey Pigtown. There's Jess. Thought you could sneak in, young lady. I see you over there.
I've been hacking. I've been getting some stuff. So we're gonna have some fun today.
Oh, good. So Saturday was an interesting phenomena, and it's just in general around college football specifically. But this game, this was a real interesting game. Alabama was solid. I have to be 100% honest with you, and maybe I'll get shot down. Maybe somebody will say, no, Bill, actually, and that if so, that's fine. But offensive line looked solid. Defensive looked fit to kill. Special teams, offensive looked solid. And I guess in the overall, what I would say was, this is a team that they look about as complete as I have seen them look in the last 8 or 9 games. And yes, I'm going back into late 2021. That's just my quick 5-minute overview take on the game. So I'll kick it out to the table at large. What'd you think, John?
Well, the offensive line played very well, and they opened big holes against a good run defense. Specifically, those 2 Jahmyr Gibbs runs late in the fourth quarter were very well blocked. And that first one, he didn't even get touched. There was nobody even there to make a play. And Bryce Young was very good before he got hurt. And by the way, his first interception, that should have been a pass interference, or at the very least a defensive holding, because that guy was grabbed and pulled and couldn't get to the ball and tipped it into the other guy's hands. They missed that penalty. So that should not have been a penalty on him. Or that should not have been an interception. That should have been a penalty. And we should have had 15-yard first down. Jalen Milroe was better than you think passing, by the way. There were a couple of drops, and and he just missed on a long ball that would have probably scored. At least been a long gamer. He just a little bit off on that. And if he gets to start this week, I think he's going to be ready. He's going to be improved, having a chance to get a little more work in with the ones. And also about him, he's got some wheels. The defense was great in the first half. They lost a little bit of intensity in the third quarter. I think some of that had to do with some injuries on the back end. Punt returns are great. Those are when we are getting ready to receive a punt, I'm starting to get excited. I'm like, what's going to happen? This is great. Oh boy, I can't wait. Our kicking is very good. We missed a field goal. It was bound to happen sooner or later. But we do have some things to fix on special teams. We shan't discuss that at this point. Lastly, why are we still committing dumb penalties on defense that are keeping us on the field and keeping their offense on the field? Major penalties on third down to give them a first down. This should not be happening at this point in the season. That's got to be addressed.
I think that's a valid question, but Jess, initial impressions. What do you think?
I think you look at the star position, and that's really what stuck out to me. Brian Brink, I think, was a bigger loss in terms of when it happened in the game compared to Bryce Young. I wouldn't say for the season, obviously, and Bryce we think is going to be all right. But at that time, consider the following when you lose your star like this. And just a little reminder for those who want to know what the star is. It's basically a versatile position. You have to cover running backs, slot guys, and you have to be physical enough to give run support in the box, and you have to guard tight ends. And Brian Brink is really the only one that they really practice with, which I kind of guess makes sense. He's a stalwart, and he's great at what he does. But consider that on two of the first three drives when he went out, they went 75 and 78 yards. No other drive before that had gone more than 28 for Arkansas. And that's really what stuck out to me. I mean, I mean, Toto plays with a lot of passion. He can know better as a senior, but you got to have your star. You think about the way that we play money guys, we play jacks, we play very specialized positions for a reason, and why we only practice those guys. It's not Saban's fault. It's just because of the nature of limited practices and really making the players work for really adjusting yourself for the players. And if you have to adjust to somebody else, with no disrespect to Kool-Aid, he did all he could. He just didn't have experience in it. That's nobody's fault but just injury gods. So,
fair enough. Bo, observations.
I mean, had they played 4 quarters of football, who knows what the score would have been. It felt to me like. So you remember that show, that movie, The Replacements, where he says, "What are you afraid of on the field?" And Keanu Reeves' character says, "Quicksand." That's what the third quarter felt like to me. It was quicksand, and it just kept going, and it just kept going. But it was nice to see them not give into that and just totally collapse. And eventually, the football is going to bounce your way. It's not round. It bounces funny. That happens. That's why the game's fun. So overall, it was a great game. I was glad to see the offensive line improve. I don't know what the deal is with center and Saban and still wanting to play Cohen. But it just seems like it's better when the other guy is in as center. And I get that the snaps are not as consistent. And that's a big deal. But the blocking is just night and day. I don't, and of course there was more than just the center that subbed in and out. And they played around with a few different people at different positions. But overall, it was an enjoyable game. It was a win. The final score looks like, we kind of expected it was. I said they were going to blow them out and they were going to cover. I just didn't realize that they only needed 3 quarters to do it.
Well, I'm only half kidding with the joke crawl for the first half of the show tonight, folks. I'm really seriously only half joking. Well, let's talk a little bit about the numbers, and I know we've gone mostly to a very quick numbers rundown, but I do want to look at specifically at Milroe passing after I go through the numbers here. So if you guys will bear with me for a beat. So 17 first downs, but when you're running into the red zone or passing into the red zone, do you need that many? 9 of 14 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. But hey, so were the Razorbacks. 27 first downs for them, and I think 26 of them were in the third quarter. 5 of 17 on third downs. Total yards, the triple nickel for us, 377 for Arkansas. Passing was a bit of a puzzler, 238, 11 for 22, but that's over two quarterbacks. Yards per pass was impressive, and it was impressive because it shows we're finally taking downfield shots just in time for Bryce to hurt his GD shoulder. One int thrown. Meanwhile, on the Razorback side, 17 of 34, 5.6 yards per pass. Rushing 317, we ate up a lot of field, 47, average 7.5 with 187 for Arkansas, 51 attempts, but only 3.7. And let's see, penalties again, 10 for 101 yards. I mean, that's like saying you guys only got 454 yards, not 555. Arkansas was 6 for 31. And by the way, regarding those penalties, everyone who's like, oh, it's the SEC refs, Alabama's untouchable, shut up. Anyway, one turnover. It was an int. Arkansas had one, was a fumble. Our TOP was 26-33. Arkansas's was 33-27. Again, I think 33 minutes of that was in the third quarter. But I want to come over here real quick, and I want to look at those stats on the box score for Milroe. So Milroe was 4 of 9 for 65 yards, QBR of 98.6. So you got that going for you, John. One TD throw. Yes, that's right. 5 of our TDs were on the ground. Which for those of you of the cult sect of RTDB, it was your night. So just going across the stats line, and I'm gonna turn around and put John on the spot with high tide, low tide, and elephant stomp immediately because I want to hear what he has to say about Milroe. Bryce, 7 of 13, 173 yards, averaging 13.3. Yes, thank you for letting him throw downfield, Bob. 1 TD, 1 int, of course. QBR 81.4. Milroe, 4 of 9, 65 yards, average 7.2, 1 TD, QBR 98.6. Those are the numbers with a special focus on passing. John Henry, you are being called on the carpet. Defend yourself, sir, when you talk about Milroe.
Defend myself. Okay.
High tide, low tide, elephant stomp, and thesis defense is what you've got to bring to us.
All right, thesis. Okay, well, let's start off with high tide. My high tide is the Jahmyr Gibbs 75-yard run, the first one to the right. That was an outside zone, and the front side of the offensive line, the center, right guard, and the tackle just sealed everybody off to the play side. They all wanted to go outside, so they took them that way, and the center sealed that off. He got in there and turned his body parallel, and nobody could get back. And the backside guard and tackle sealed off the backside, and there was just this 2 Mack trucks could have driven through this hole. The offensive line blocked it brilliantly, and Jahmyr Gibbs just said, "Okay, I need to get fast," and he took off. The closest unblocked player was Sanders, and he was playing a slot receiver, and his first steps as a play was away from the play. He stepped toward the receiver, and then he figured out what was going on and took off chasing after him and gave up on the play. So there's that. And that I mean that's all you have to say about that one. It was just a really nice play. Jahmyr Gibbs is fast. He may be faster than Milroe. He looked faster than Milroe on that play. My low tide. Special teams. Our special teams kept them in the game. We misplayed an onside kick badly.
Yeah.
All the kicker, all he had to do was kick that ball, run across the line, and wait for that ball across, make it 10 yards, and fall on the ball. And that's what he did. Those guys were out of position. They weren't paying. They weren't watching, and they were late to the play. And then there was a bad punt snap that hit one of the up backs. Whoops. And those two miscues led to 10 points. That's got to be cleaned up. I don't expect to see either one of those things happen again. I especially don't expect to see us misplaying an onside kick again.
Mm-hmm.
And my elephant stomp is simply this: Jalen Milroe stepped onto the field and executed when it was his time. He needs to improve, and he has some holes in his game. I will agree with that, but he came in and executed the offense and made plays when they had to be made. And he's a dangerous football player. I expect to see him improve week to week as long as he's in there as a starter.
All right. Fair enough. Fairly said. Jess, high tide, low tide, elephant stomp. What do you got?
So high tide, this is going to be a statistical based one. So the highest speed in the NFL this year, well, going after Saturday, but I don't know if someone exceeded this since, but going into that, Devin Duvernay of the Baltimore Ravens of Texas for college days, a 103-yard return, hit 21.6 miles an hour. Jahmyr Gibbs' top speed against Arkansas was 22.8 miles an hour. He has been faster than anybody in the NFL this year. Let's put that into perspective. Over a mile faster. Like, this is not like a dinky, it's a fraction of a mile. This is over a mile. Like, this is considerable. That just boggles the mind. I really haven't seen anything like that. Like, if we had a back like that lately, like B-Rob wasn't that. He was a quick cutback. Najee Harris was a strength back. God bless him. He wasn't a guy who was going to blow you away with his speed. He was going to blow you away with his muscle. Damian Harris, a good one cut back. Derrick Henry, one cut back with massive strength. Bo Scarborough, kind of like a multi cut back. He could do a wheel for you, could do all kinds of things. Not really a burner like that. I can't remember the last guy that we had that fit this kind of profile in the backfield. It is incredible.
Ingram, maybe you think?
Ingram, yeah, right. You have to go that far back. Yeah,
Drake, Kenyon Drake, maybe.
Drake, yeah. And to an extent, yelled him when they would swing him out. But that's not where he's run per se. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're talking about approaching a decade ago. I watched those games on Bama Rewind. A little plug for our guest next week. And I'm like, yeah, this game was a couple of years ago. No, this game was 9 years ago, Bill. This game was 8 years ago, Bill. I'm sorry, Jess, please continue. So high tide.
That's up on the high tide. Yeah, it's the high speeding tide. Like, that's a tsunami right there.
It is.
Low tide has to be toe-to-toe, as mentioned. Just, it's not even necessarily the penalty, which was awful and led to a score. It's that you're a senior and a linebacker and you need to lead by example. The problem with that is, from the locker room perspective, everyone else thinks it's going to be okay because the leader linebacker did it on the field. No, it's not. And it's just careless, too. It's not like it was one of those flimsy flags where momentum can't stop you, like one of those accident ones. This was deciding to rough the guy up after the whistle had blown, and not only that, in clear sight of the ref. What are you hoping for there? Absolutely dominating them in the trenches at that point. And, you're really struggling a little bit to get off the field, but you're winning the trenches war. And you're just going to give them that for free? And not only the yards, but the ability to feel like, hey, we can move the ball because they're going to be stupid. No. So Elephant Stomp is going to be interesting. It is what we had previously said, but I want to give a bit more insight on this play. So it was play number 57, and we know what it was. It was an outside zone power read for 76 yards by Gibbs, but we're going to give it a little bit more. So as I was noting, it was if you notice, if you chat with us in certain channels, I was saying it was a pin pull maneuver basically in a base set for the offensive line. But in terms of outside zone power reads, I want to give a little bit more than that. It's what I would call really an X orbit 7 base RPO swinger. So basically what that means is that your X comes in orbital motion. That just means your X is in motion. And, 7 base just refers to what you're facing, essentially. RPO swinger is referring to the fact that you're swinging it outside. That's all that means. It sounds like we're ordering off a very fancy menu from a foreign country that you may or may not understand what you're getting. But that's all that results in. You're still getting your old tried and true outside zone goodness that we really ought to run a lot more. Because, you break down what we ran last week against Arkansas, right? So we ran inside zone read 13 times. We ran it 20.63% of the time. We had a success rate of about 46 on it. Inside power had 50% success rate, ran about 15% of the time, 10 times. Outside zone, we only ran it 6 times. We had a 66.67% success rate on it. And you know what's interesting though to me is really actually the passing concepts. I'm talking about run, but this really stuck out to me. We ran spacing and curl and flat concepts for 86 yards. That was our most of any passing concept by 3 outside of outside power read. And we ran about a low under 15% of the time. But that doesn't sound familiar? It's where we run against Vanderbilt. The same thing. Granted, when you run a curl flat concept, you're going to use it to run beat cover 3, which admittedly that's what they run in Arkansas. And admittedly that's to an extent what the Disciples run in Vanderbilt. But it's so interesting to see a team like this because they do adjust. Run basically the same thing of these little dinky curl and flats that are Bill O'Brien staples from 10 years ago, 2 weeks in a row. Granted, we did run Yankee concepts a little bit, ran some slants a little bit. I'd like to see more of those Yankee concepts. I don't know if y'all want me to define Yankee concepts. Hey, how about this? We're talking about Yankee concepts on the SEC show, but
That's like when you put sugar in cornbread, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got some hot dogs and some burgers, then call it a bar.
Oyster stuffing. That's a Yankee concept.
So y'all want me to define Yankee concept because I think I should. So
hit it.
Yeah. So it's 2-man deep crossing. Underneath guy runs a deep over. Other runs a deep post over the top. So basically, you're running with a lot of protection. You're running jumbo. Running with play action. Those are the kinds of shits we need. Honestly, I love the Yankee concept. I'm a big disciple of it because what it does, it takes the cover off. What that can do for your guys like your backs, like Gibbs, when we saw with the outside zone, if these guys are running off the top over the middle, well, where are you going to bring the safeties down? Over the freaking middle. The worst going to be exposed areas, the outside zone. Run it more, Bill. The Yankee concepts are good, man.
All right. Well, thank you for the clarification. Bo, have you got a high tide, low tide elephant stomp?
I do. The high tide was the offensive line with Seth at center. Just vast improvement. The low tide, my low tide was specifically the bad snap on the punt. But since you made me follow Jess, my low tide is having to follow Jess after that. All right. And the elephant stomp, my elephant stomp was 3rd and 15, Milrose 75-yard scamper. Because at that point in the game, we were still like, we didn't have this thing in the bag yet, right? That play right there was what really, and then everything after that was just, beautiful. So that's where I am.
All right. Well, speaking for myself, high tide was seeing the offensive line firm up, but also I gotta go with a 3-way tie on high tide. The offensive line firmed up enough so that Gibbs was able to break off 2 absolutely magnificent runs, and Milroe could work with his legs, and we didn't have to rely on a powerful, but let's be honest, guys, inaccurate throwing arm. We can't play slant games. We can't play screens. We can't play chucks into the flat and get to the playoffs. It's just not feasible. He needs to either develop, or we need to get some extra strength, potion of extra healing strength, deer antler spray on Bryce's shoulder, stat. So watching the offensive line do what an Alabama offensive line should do, and what this offensive line hasn't been doing for quite some time, was a real high point to me, because it let Gibbs just thunder out at 22 miles an hour, and it let Milroe rob the Hogs of their will to live, as you point out. Low Tide, oh my gosh, the entirety of the third quarter, almost the entirety of the third quarter. Special teams execution was bad. Defense was bad. Overall, the offense was also not very good. Elephant Stomp, I'm kind of cheating on this a little bit. I would say Elephant Stomp is probably going to be Milroe's run. I got to go with you on that one, Bo. I mean, breaking off a 75-yard touchdown when you're 3rd and 15, and Arkansas is building up momentum. You know, they came out and practiced at halftime. Like they literally ran PT drills at halftime, which was just amazing and scary. So that's it for me. I mean, you know, I saw a ton of stuff that I liked. I saw a bunch of ticky-tack crap that is like second game of the season against a third-rate FCS team level bad. I mean, our special teams was like us getting snookered on that onside kick was literally something that I would have expected out of Citadel. You know, like, oh, Citadel gave up an onside kick. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Not us. So that's my feeling there. So with that said, we are, of course, at halftime, and as longtime fans of the show will know, halftime is when we talk a little bit of trivia. Now, our question last week was, what was the overall record, Alabama versus Arkansas? And if I am wrong on this, if I dropped the ball, I fully expect to hear from the audience on this, but I do not think anyone got it. The record, Alabama versus Arkansas, was Alabama 22 wins to Arkansas 8 wins, and that, of course, is now extended 23 wins to Arkansas 8 wins. So that is the trivia. And this week's trivia, because we are playing the Cult. We are playing the Cult this coming weekend, which we will discuss at length. TJP says he was close. Count the vacated season, I guess. But anyway, I do like talking about other teams losing to Alabama, and so our question focuses on this a little bit. What is the largest margin of victory, and what year was it in our current run against Texas A&M? Our largest margin of victory in what year? That is your question. You can leave it over in the live chat. You can put it down in the comments if nobody gets it, and you'll get the shout out of the week. So that's it for halftime. Now, normally, right after halftime, we come out and we talk to our on-field specialist, Jessica Brand, about No Hugs and No Kisses. But that has now moved to our website. Jess, where can folks find your No Hugs, No Kisses columns going forward in the future?
You can find it on the houndstoothpodcast.com. And as you saw, you kind of got a preview of what was happening in action kind of during the Elephant Stomp that I gave. You'll see stuff like that, but you'll actually have visuals, because I really think if you're going to break down film film is meant to be experienced by the eyes, be it a silent film of Buster Keaton or today's stuff. So I got a bonus question though for the room. Before we go on, if y'all want to play this one, it'll be fun. When Alabama lost its first game to Texas A&M, who was the opposing coach?
I know.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, not too hard. I can make it harder, but y'all got it? Who is it?
Yeah, he got a free lift after the game.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't that is my shame. That is my shame. I don't know that one.
Well, that's the name you recognize.
Shall we reveal it, or do we want to let someone in the comments do it?
Well, TJP got he hit it right off the bat, 49-0. We beat A&M back in 17.
Wait, that's not it. No.
Nope.
That was the 27-19 game. That was
right?
not it.
Is that not it? Let me see.
That was not right at all. No.
I don't have my notes in front of me. Sorry.
Back up 3 years and add 10 points.
That's right. 59 in. Well, Jess's will have to be the trivia question because I just put my foot in it. Sorry, guys.
That's why I was coming with the backup. Trust me.
Thank you. It's just we have a backup quarterback when my brain strains a hamstring. All right. So, with that said, All Day. You know what? All Day gets the shout out. 56 in 2014. There you go.
That's not right either. I mean, the year's right, the number isn't.
56 in 2014. Is that not what we said? I am.
Oh, you're
getting closer.
Yeah.
All right. Moving right along.
It had like you could only hear like the trombones playing like that might be a hint. You can remember that.
All right. So Jess has got the real trivia question, and I'm just fumbling all over myself here. Let's see. Well, Bo was so ashamed of my trivia fumble that he left. He just wandered off. There he is. He's back in the green room. Well, halftime is the time for clowning, and boy, we did clown up like that. So we're going to go ahead and shift gears and get serious, or as serious as the show ever gets, and let's talk some Saturday egg ball with Big John talking about the top 10 scores.
Well, before we do that, let's hit the SEC, and I'll tell you what, guys.
Let's talk SEC.
I'll tell you what. I've been in a literary mood lately, so just bear with me on that. And we'll just see where this goes, because we're going to start with Georgia, Missouri, and I will say it was the best of halves. It was the worst of halves. Georgia had 172 yards of offense with 2 field goals and 2 fumbles in the first half, trailing 16-6. But in the second half, they outscored Missouri 20-6. Georgia took their first lead against mighty Mizzou 26-22 with 4 minutes left in the game. Stetson Bennett was 24 of 43 for 312 yards with no touchdowns and one of those fumbles, while the Tigers' Brady Cook was 20 of 32 with 1 touchdown. Georgia kicker Jack Podlesny was, I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know.
That's correct. Yep.
Oh, I stumbled all over it. Still got it. Was 4 of 4 on field goals, and Missouri kicker Harrison Mavis was 5 of 5 with a 56-yarder. So this was a game of legs. And by the way, let me tell you about how. When I said it was the best of halves, it was the worst of halves. Let me tell you the worst half. Georgia's first half drives, -9 yards and a punt. First play fumble, 2 yards and a punt, fumble, field goal. That was their first half. That's how mighty Georgia played.
I will say, though, here's a fun fact about this game. Georgia was the only FBS team who had not trailed this season coming into that game.
and they trailed for 56 minutes.
Exactly. Perfect.
Well, something approaching 56 minutes.
To the
Next up-
team that lost to Auburn the prior week.
Yeah, yes. Ooh. And speaking of Auburn, Georgia's got them at home this week, and Missouri plays Florida in the Swamp.
It's not fair that Georgia gets 2 bye weeks.
Talk to the schedulers. Continuing our literary evening, through the fence between the curling flower spaces, I could see them hitting. Ole Miss beat Kentucky 22-19. Ole Miss jumped out to a 14-0 lead and never trailed, but Kentucky had 3 chances to tie or take the lead in the fourth quarter. But Will Levis threw incomplete on fourth down on the first drive, and then someone started playing Benny Hill music because Levis fumbled on Kentucky's last 2 possessions, ending any chance of winning in Oxford. He was 18 of 24 for 220 yards with 2 TDs along with the 2 fumbles. Jackson Dart, who sounds like somebody's toddler to me, was 15 of 29 for 213 yards and a pick. Wow. Keenshawn Judkins had 15 carries for 106 yards and a TD for the Rebels. Next up for Ole Miss, they have Vandy in Nashville. Probably still some good tickets left there. And for Kentucky, they've got South Carolina at home, so they get a bye week too. For LSU and Auburn, it was a pleasure to burn. And by the way, if anybody wants to throw out where these literary gems are coming from, feel free to leave them in the comments. LSU had.
I'm going to blurt this one out because I friggin' love Fahrenheit 451. Thank you. Thank you.
That was a good one.
The theme is not just literary; it is the first line of novels. So, the first sentence of novels. So, yes, LSU had 67 yards of total offense and was down 17-0 until they strip sacked Robbie Ashford. And Jay Ward returned that fumble 23 yards for a touchdown. Auburn then missed a field goal on the next possession, and LSU took the ball on their own 23 with 1 minute and 48 seconds on the clock. Auburn called timeouts after LSU's first 2 plays in that, then promptly committed a personal foul to give them a first down. And LSU ended up driving the field and scoring with 15 seconds left in the half. LSU scored another touchdown in the third quarter, aided by a pass interference penalty, while Auburn punted twice, turned the ball over on downs once, and threw 2 picks in the second half. This team plays ugly, and they lose ugly. Next up for LSU is Tennessee at home, so we're going to learn something about LSU. And next up for Auburn is Georgia in Sanford Stadium, so we're going to learn how well Auburn bleeds, I think. Okay, Mississippi State and Texas A&M. All this happened, more or less. Mississippi State and Texas A&M were scoreless into the second quarter when the Aggies fumbled in the red zone. Bulldogs then drove 94 yards for a touchdown and then scored on their next possession to take a 14-0 lead at halftime. The Aggies kicked the field goal on the first possession of the third quarter to get within 11, but that was as close as they could get the rest of the way as Cowbell U won 42-24. Will Rogers was 31 of 45 for 329 yards and 3 TDs, which are typical numbers for that offense. And the Bulldogs had 144 yards rushing, which is not typical for this offense because they ran the ball. Yes, rushing. Max Johnson apparently came down with a case of Peyronie's disease in the second half after going 19 for 26 for 203 yards and a touchdown. And Haynes King relieved him to the tune of 3 for 13 for 49 yards and 2 picks. 3 receptions, 2 picks. The Aggies had 4 turnovers in the game. And I am not apologizing for the Peyronie's crack, even though he's probably out for the game and the season. And next up for Mississippi State is Arkansas at home, while Texas A&M, they're getting the horns in Bryant-Denny. All right. For now, we're going to move on to Florida, South Carolina. It was a bright, hot day in October, and the clocks were striking 13. The Eastern Washington Eagles flew down to Gainesville to get pummeled by Florida 52-17. Gators gave up 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to make the score slightly more respectable. Anthony Richardson was 8 of 10 for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's 24 yards per attempt, not even 24 yards per reception, and with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Receiver Ricky Pearsall touched the ball twice, once on a 22-yard reception and once on an end around for 76 yards and a touchdown. Justin Shorter touched the ball once on a 75-yard touchdown pass. So they had some explosivity. And my notes just ended. Who's Florida got this week? Did I already say? I don't think I did. Or are they off this week? No, they're playing Missouri. That's right.
Yes.
At home. My mistake, guys. All right. South Carolina. There was a boy called Spencer Michael Rattler, and he almost deserved it. They beat South Carolina State Bulldogs 50-10 while still managing to look mediocre. Rattler threw 2 picks, and the leading rusher for the game was on the other side of the field. And that's all we need to say about that. South Carolina has Kentucky and Lexington next up. Now, Arkansas was off. Arkansas, well, they were not off. Sorry. We know what they did, though, and they have Mississippi State and Cowboy Country next. Vandy was off last week, and they have Ole Miss at home. And finally, Tennessee, and I know this for a fact because I was there, the whole state was cruising the parkway from Sevierville to Gatlinburg in tiny cars lowered to the ground with no mufflers, obnoxiously canted wheels, and ground effects the whole weekend. I know
enjoy your trip
because what's that? Except for the traffic, it was fine. But that every other car was one of those little things, and they're obnoxious. Sorry. And for Tennessee, they've got LSU and Red Stick. All right, let's move on to the top 10. We'll take care of the rest of that. And we know number 1, Georgia, number 2, Alabama. Next, number 3, Ohio State. Rutgers went 3-0 on their first series and promptly punted, but recovered a muff punt at Ohio State's 13. Took them 3 plays to score on a 14-yard touchdown pass. Note that they recovered the ball on the 13, but had to throw a 14-yard touchdown pass to take a 7-0 lead. Ohio State scored the next 28 points, and the Buckeyes ended up winning 49-10. Running back Travion Williams was out with an injury, but Mayan Williams had 21 carries for 189 yards and 5 TDs to pick up the slack. Not bad for a backup. While C.J. Stroud was 13 of 22 for 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. And the Buckeye defense held Rutgers to 187 total yards. Up next for Ohio State, they have Michigan State and East Lansing.
If you've beaten Rutgers, have you really played football, though? Anyway.
I can't. I tried to figure this one out. I tried to go back and do the research and prove this, but number 1, I was supposed to be working today, and number 2, my browser just would not cooperate. But I think Rutgers' lead in the game was the first lead that Rutgers has ever had over Ohio State in the history of the series.
I can believe it. I can absolutely believe it.
So, yeah, and I have a friend.
That's confirmed. Yep. I'm a sports researcher in my day job, so I can confirm that very quickly, and I did.
I should have just asked you. I was trying to go do the original research. Next time, I'm just going to ping you on Twitter. Hey, answer. All right, let's move on to number 4, Michigan. Michigan scored on their first 5 possessions, while Iowa had 76 yards of offense in the first half. And Michigan beat Iowa 27-14.
But here's the question. Did Iowa score 2 touchdowns or 7 safeties?
That's a legit question.
Yeah. Well, J.J. McCarthy was 18 of 24 for 155 yards and a touchdown. Decent defense against that. Blake Corum had 29 carries for 133 yards and a touchdown. Iowa's quarterback Spencer Petras was not rock solid. Sorry.
Ooh, that.
So he was 21 of 31 for 246 and a TD. Not bad numbers. I disparaged the man for a joke, and I apologize.
No, that's okay.
But Iowa's held the 35 yards rushing. By the way, it should have been closer to 70, but Petrus was sacked 4 times for minus 31 yards. That kind of, in the college, they take that away from your rushing totals. And bad news for Michigan, no orgies were cited on the field this week. Probably not in conference play. There's probably rules against that. Next up for Michigan is Indiana in Bloomington. Number 5, Auburn with a Lake. NC State scored a touchdown with under 2 minutes left in the first half to take a 10-6 lead. But then Clemson drove 75 yards in 8 plays to retake the lead just before half. Then they scored another touchdown on their first possession of the second half to take a 10-point lead, and then up winning, beating the NC State Wolfpack 30-20. Ukulele was 21 of 30 for 209 yards and a touchdown, and was Clemson's leading rusher with 14 carries for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. They found a way for Ukulele to contribute and do well in this offense. Devin Leary for NC State was 28 of 47 for 245 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and he lost a fumble. And next up for Clemson is Boston College and Chestnut Hill, where they do not allow tailgating, I hate to say. All right, we're almost there. We got number 6, USC. Their quarterback, Caleb Williams, was 27 of 37 for 348 yards, 3 touchdowns, another rushing touchdown, and a pick. Travis Dye had 2 touchdowns on 62 yards rushing, and the Trojans held off Arizona State 42-25. Emory Jones was 23 of 32 for 243 yards and a touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a pick. And by the way, that is USC's NCAA leading 12th pick of the season. Their lead,
well, at least they're good at something.
Yes, their defense is opportunistic. They're getting picks from literally all 3 layers of their defense. They've a defensive end, a couple of linebackers, and quite a few defensive back picks. Next up for USC is Washington State in the Coliseum. Maybe this will be a test. We'll see. All right, number 7 is Kentucky. Number 8 is Tennessee. Was Kentucky. Number 8 was Tennessee. Number 9, Oklahoma State. This was an odd game a little bit. Oklahoma State controlled the game for the most part and won the game 35-25. But Baylor outgained Oklahoma State 457 to 379 total yards and had the chance to come back. But Bear quarterback Blake Shapen threw two fourth-quarter picks to end the comeback attempt. Spencer Sanders for Oklahoma State was 20 of 29 for 181 and a touchdown, running and passing with 1 pick. And Shapen was 28 of 40 for 345 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. I see a trend. Cowboy Jaden Nixon returned the opening kickoff of the second half, 98 yards for a touchdown, and the defense scored a safety in the second quarter. So that kind of explains the disparity in yards versus the score. Next up for Oklahoma State is Texas Tech in Stillwater. That might be a test for them. And then to round it all off, NC State. We've already talked about them. And there we go.
And there we go. There is your SEC roundup and our top 10. And, folks, I was hanging out on our team Discord today, and it seemed to be that something was bothering Bo. Bo seemed irritated about something. He seemed a little off-put. And in the interest of giving the team some room to rant, folks, let's find out what's bugging Bo Ganora. Bo?
Oh, I'll tell you what's bugging Bo. So Saturday is the best day of the week. We can all agree on that, right?
Yes.
Typically, you're not scheduled to go into work. You may have some things to do, but it for the most part, you can do what you like. And in the fall, we have the best sport, which is God's sport, played on Saturdays, and that's college football.
As it should be.
Well, that sacred cow has been sent to the butcher because ESPN decided it was more important for us to watch and listen to Aaron Judge either strike out or get walked than actually watch the game that we tuned into on purpose. Right? If I had wanted to watch baseball, then I would have turned on baseball. I wouldn't have turned on the Clemson game or the Auburn game or the Oklahoma game. No, not one single person that I have talked to this week was even remotely concerned with what Judge was doing. I mean, it's not even an MLB record. It's just an AL record and a Yankees record. They're so far behind the National League in home runs record-wise that there's no way he can beat it. So, okay, fine. But, dude's got, thank God he's got 62 already, so we don't have to worry about that this weekend. But he plays half his games in one of the most home run friendly stadiums in the whole league. So I don't know. The only people who were okay with those cut-ins were Oklahoma fans because they didn't have to listen to how bad they were losing to TSU or TCU. So for a few minutes. 11 separate times they interrupted college football. And do you know how many hits this dude got? 2. 2 hits, right? He's batted 181. And do you know how many home runs he got? Big fat 0. Big fat 0. I don't care about baseball normally, but especially don't care about baseball during a football game. And I'm not a TV executive, but maybe ESPN could have a channel that is dedicated to breaking news in the sports world. They put whatever they want on that channel as it happens. The British Bake Off finals, a WNBA game, has an attendance record. They got time. They can show all 24 people that show up. Danica Patrick finishes a race without crashing. They could just put it, maybe call it ESPN News or something like that. I don't know. But ESPN, you suck. And the only reason that you're in my house is because it's college football season. And I can guarantee you that immediately after the college football championship game, my subscription will be canceled. Screw you, ESPN, and the mouse you came in on. That's all I got.
Started.
Noted. The Bugaboo has spoken. That is Bo's Bugaboo column. Anytime he gets hot under the collar, we will let him turn that steam release valve. And I'm going to warn the folks in the front row, you will get scalded. All right. Well, I'm right there with you, Bo. When I want to watch baseball, I watch baseball. And when I want to watch football, I'll watch football. That is peanut butter and anchovies trying to mix the two. So, we've talked about the conference. We've talked about the top 10. Now let's talk about your wallet, your team IQ, and your football finances, because John Henry's going to talk buy, sell, and hold on the top 10 stock ticker tips.
Thank you, sir. And let us put on our green eye shades and take a hard, jaded look at this. And by the way, I sense a trend here, and Jess, not to pick on you, but I think I'm going to let you go last in this because Bill and Bo are getting a little reluctant to follow you. They're worried they can't keep up.
She's making the rest of us look bad. Just saying.
For some of us, it's not, grass can make us look bad. For some of us, I'm not naming any names, John. So let's start with my number one. And by the way, something has to change and I'm just giving you some insight into how I'm thinking. Something other than a flat game is going to have to happen before I do much changing. So my number one has been my number one the whole time, and it's still my number one, and that is Georgia. So, Bill, let's start with you.
Oh, boy. So, Georgia, I am holding but looking to buy. We're going to see how the next two the next two business cycles play out for Georgia, but the audience is getting angry at you, though. You're going to have to justify this one, John, when it comes to you. But I am holding Georgia, but leaning strongly towards by Georgia. Is this hiccup endemic of something? Not being able to out scheme, forgive me, Eli Drinkwitz? Let's see. Was it a bad production run, or is this something that involves the entire supply chain? We'll find out. Holding Georgia.
Fair enough. All right, Bo.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I if I had Georgia at one, I'd hold. I'd be tempted to sell because I kind of think that they've peaked. They had not a great game against Missouri, so I would hold them. But if they have a repeat performance, then yes, I'll take the profit and sell.
All right. And Jess.
Now, I sell here. They've played back-to-back weeks of Kent State and against Missouri. This is a problem, right? Because you consider it from both sides of the ball. There's not consistency within their offense. There's not consistency within their defense, honestly. They're really having issues with the outside plays, and this is a team that really has plays that are supposed to adjust to the outside. They're not really supposed to be a good middle team. If people are taking advantage of where they're supposed to be good pretty consistently when you talk about their defensive schemes versus really, honestly, substandard offenses, and that guys like Luther for Missouri are doing things that really, I think, any of like Prentice or anyone could do like that. Granted, Luther is pretty darn big, but my point is that the catch radius is going to be there. The outside opportunity is going to be there if they choose to run it. And that's what killed them last year in the playoffs, right? The same thing. They would just use Williams down the sideline. That's how we've consistently beaten them. It's never been the inside game. Never. Look at all the highlights of UGA versus Bama over the past few years, and how often, aside from like 1-yard rushes, the ones that are chunk plays that wind up scoring, how often do you see those over the middle? You don't. And other teams have figured that out. I still think they're easily and by far the number 3 team, but they are not my number 1. So
I see 2 bad games. If I see a third game here with either a scare with Auburn, I'm thinking that people have figured them out. That's the way I'm thinking about this thing.
If Auburn makes Georgia mediocre, then they just should go out of business because that's
they struggle with the barn. I don't know what to say. Like honestly.
Well, that's why we play the games.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see if they can adjust or if people have figured out how to stop them and make plays against them. And my number 2, because nothing has changed, is Alabama. Bill.
Buying Alabama at 2 with a put order to double that when you rightfully put them at number 1 when Georgia pancakes over the next 2 games. I don't mean lose, but I mean plays absolutely mediocre top 3 pages football and nearly gets beat. So yeah, buying them strong at number 2 with a put order to buy more when you put them where they belong at number 1.
All right. Bo.
I agree with Bill.
You what with Bill?
I agree with Bill. Yeah.
That sounds like an intro.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see your investing strategy. Do what Bill does.
Well, we're only at number 2, but so far, yes, that's correct.
All right.
This will only end in tears.
Jess.
I mean, Bill is only 2 vowels away from bull, so I mean it makes sense. I like Alabama number 2. That's admittedly where I would rank them. I think the bigger story, and it's kind of being lost, about how good the defense up front has been. The offensive line has turned into a moderate strength. It's not quite a years past, but relative to expectations, it's good. No more Marone. We're seeing good outside blocking, which they didn't have at the strong side last year. Latham is going along really well. But Boygby's back on the defensive side with his neck stuff. That's scary stuff. I know he's not cleared to practice until they get the okay. But the defensive line, the front seven, God bless Henry Thoreau's heart for making that silly penalty. But that's a unit that imposes. The secondary is good too if Branch gets back because everybody knows their roles. There's really not the communications issues that I've seen prevail over this team the past, like, at this time at least. At least the past 3 years, honestly. The defense is the story for this team, and in a good way. The offense is ascending pretty well nicely. Granted, I do ding them a little bit because the ranking system I'm using is really not going to account for injuries necessarily. So it'll treat any output by Bryce as the same as Milrow because, it's still a passing offense or a quarterback rushing offense. But this is a team that's on the rise. I like them at 2, but I probably would do a strangle on them. So, mostly neutral, slightly bullish.
I'm putting you down as slightly bullish here. All right. And this coming up is where I'm going to be disagreeing with most everybody else, but I haven't seen enough out of anybody else to make me switch yet. They've got to make me move them. So my number 3 is still Michigan. So, Bill.
Oh my gosh, what to say about Michigan at 3?
Khaki.
Yeah, Michigan is such a puzzler to me. I mean, look, Michigan's not going to the playoffs. Michigan's not going to the national championship. And I take such great glee in pointing out the actual number statistics that shut up a certain other sportscaster who thinks that Michigan's current coach is a better overall football coach than Nick Saban, but that's an argument for another day. I just can't figure Michigan out. Are they good? Are they bad? They're not awful, but they're not. I mean, I'm almost begging for some help. What do I do with this, guys? I got warehouses full of khakis. Do I hold on to them for the eventual rush in of earth tone fashion, or do I sell as quickly as I can? I'm leaning to it's. I gotta. Michigan to me is like when you're playing Monopoly. And you get like the really cheap places, but you make up your money by having lots of them. That's kind of what Michigan is to me. I lean towards a sell on Michigan.
Lean sell. Okay. So you're saying this is a low margin, high volume business, Michigan is in.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So are you thinking the downward margin pressures are going to get to them and affect their bottom line in a negative way?
Yes, I do, actually. I don't.
This is way too far into my day job. Let's move away from this.
That's fine, but to get to brass tacks, I just don't see Michigan as any other than a mid-range feeder. They'll have a nice bowl game. They'll get some lovely swag bags. They'll get to say "Go Blue, go." We'll get them next year, but this is not a buy team. Okay, this is a. I'm selling Michigan. I'm selling Michigan.
All right, and Bo.
Well, the cost to earnings ratio is way out of whack with Michigan. And if I had them at 3, I would be taking profits and selling.
All right. So we're a sell. Jess is going to rip me up one side and down the other on this.
Not too much. No, I think they're certainly not in the class as my number 1 with Alabama, Georgia, and the other one you don't even know yet. But Michigan, I think, is clearly, as of right now, I think it is going to change. Right now is the 4th. you talk about what their offensive production has been really without a guy like Eric All at tight end. I mean, granted, he's been a good inline guy, but the receiving group remains excellent. You talk about Ronnie Bell, Cornelius Johnson, Blake Corum has looked really good since they made the change of quarterback, which was long overdue, but they had to make it off McNamara. It just made sense. And that's really where you've seen the switch flip for, I think, for Michigan. To see an offense that's flowing, to have more of an offense that can go more than 10 yards down the field. I mean, yeah, Ronnie Bell wasn't really the fastest guy, but, he is pretty competitive. Cornelius Johnson reminds me a little bit of Donovan Peoples-Jones a little bit. A big guy, 6'3", 211. I think this team has the fundamentals to be a very good upper middle class team is how I would describe them, and maybe a little bit above that, because they're not quite in the old Rick Boys old club. But they do warrant right now, if I had to name a team for the fourth spot for the playoff, they'd be it.
So are we buy or hold?
It's a slight sell, but very, very
slight sell.
Yeah, it's a slight strip. Yeah.
All right. Well, the main reason they're above the number 4 team is because they won the last meeting and they won it handily, and they won it by beating them up. It was things that don't always show up in the stat sheet. So my trust of stats for football has a limit. Michigan is a little bit like Georgia, and they remind me of some of those old school Alabama teams where the defense will just tear you to pieces, and the offense is put together with baling wire and chewing gum, and to make something functional. I'm not saying that they're that bad, but it reminds me of some of those old school teams, and they're not trying to. They want to grind you down. They want 4 yards in the cloud. They don't want too many explosive plays because that gives up the ball and exposes the defense. They still think that way, and I can't tell yet if Michigan is that team that is grinding people down because they want to grind people down, or if they're grinding people down because that's all they can do and they can't do anything else. We'll find out when they get down 2 scores to somebody, I think. But let's move on to my number 4, which a lot of people have higher, and that's Ohio State. Bill.
I mean, Ohio State is the Kia minivan of football teams right now. They're reliable. They run like a Swiss watch. They're going to get you from point A to point B. They're going to get you from starting gun to end. It's not going to be spectacular. You're not going to lay rubber. All right. They are the sewing machine, like 4-cylinder inline. So with that said, that's what everybody wants. Oh yeah, you might shift a couple of sports cars, but on Saturday when you got the noodle man out front and the balloons and the free pizza for the kids, people are coming in for the minivan. So where am I at on Ohio State? I would say put me as a buy on Ohio State, but only at 4th.
So you're not putting them any higher than 4th?
I'm not putting them any higher than 4th, no.
All right, Bo.
Yeah, so I would hold at 4. I question whether they're higher than that. I haven't watched enough of them to know. I've looked at box scores and stat lines and highlights and things like that, but I haven't really dug deep. So I'm sure Jess will tell me why I'm wrong, but I'm going to hold them at 4.
Jess, tell him why he's wrong.
Jess, why is Bo wrong?
Well, I have them on a long call, so that says something. But I love what their offensive line is right now. You talk about guys like Paris Johnson Jr., DeJuan Jones. They have a very underrated, I think, defense with guys like Ransom. We know Ransom. He was one of the great guys that they have back there. Zach Harrison back there. I am concerned about how they face out of conference, but if you're talking about in terms of individual schedule, there is nothing better than this offense right now. It is complete. It is simple, perhaps to a fault, I would argue. And I do call it the circus offense. And not like circus crazy, but like a circus goes into a building, and it looks all nice, and it does all the tricks. And it's great. But if you throw them off schedule, if you take out the net from under the trapeze artist, it gets scary. But the Big Ten is really their 10. They dominated, and to me, they really are the best team in the country right now. I think that can easily change, but long term, hence hence the long call. Number 1, absolutely.
Okay, you're a buy. Okay, well, hey, we've hit number 5, and this is where we're getting weird. We've been getting weird here all week. So the top 4 hasn't changed all year. Number 5 through number 10 has it's been all over the place. It's like my daughter when she has too much candy. Just
Chaos reigns.
Yes. All right. So actually, from last week to this week, not too much has changed. My number 5 right now is Ole Miss. They're hanging on at number 5. I'll put it that way. So, Bill, you want to tell me what you've got?
Look, Kiffin's a bright young kid. Okay, he comes up with this razzle dazzle stuff seemingly out of nowhere, but the reality is he needs a dad. Okay, he needs Nick Saban or somebody like Nick Saban to rein him in and to give him the tools to use. He went from a 500-piece Sears Craftsman from the old days tool set at Alabama to everything he could stuff in his pocket from the tools with a Z section at the Dollar Tree. And it shows in his recruiting or lack thereof. And they have folded just like those cheap metal screwdrivers and pliers that you get at Dollar Tree in a fit of desperation late on a Sunday afternoon to try and fix something. You end up leaving more metal flakes on your floor than... Anyway, I was going far with that analogy, but I'll rein it in. Kiff, love you to pieces. You fall apart later in the season. So I am a mild sell. I'm a mild sell. Sorry.
Okay. Bo.
Yeah, I'm a definite sell. I've got Ole Miss somewhere around 8 or 9.
I think that's more realistic. Yeah.
Yeah, they're and I did get to watch a good bit of the the Ole Miss Kentucky game, and Kentucky should have won that game. Okay, they didn't, and that happens. But I don't think Ole Miss winning over Kentucky is enough to jump them into the top 5. So I've still got them around 8 or 9. If I had them at 5, I would sell.
All right, Jeff.
I am on a slight sell with them. I'm not convinced of their defense, and I like their offense. Don't get me wrong. I would say who are you looking at on their defense? Who do you really trust? He's not the brother of Jordan, but Miles Battle. Miles Battle is a guy who's big and he's long. I don't like how he plays. He's not very alert. He's quick, but he doesn't know really where to go. He has no understanding of a playbook, which is really kind of the perfect embodiment of Ole Miss. But their offense is electric, right? Because you think about it, you got Nick Brocker at guard. Zach Evans from TCU has been a wonder transfer. Jonathan Mingo's looked really good. Obviously missed a lot of last year going into actually our game. But you also got to consider Michael Trigg, another one they got from USC aside from Dart. They have a lot of really good pieces on offense that are kind of sneaky good. It's not enough to say that they're this high to me, but they are a top 10 team at the same time. So I'd slightly sell them, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them potentially move a little bit up in the near future. So it's kind of like I'd say like a covered put, like honestly.
Got it. Okay. Well, we're moving out of conference for my next one. That's Penn State. So, Bo, let's switch it up. What do you have?
I'm going to sell. I've got Penn State just behind Ole Miss. Either 9 or 10, depending on what you want to do with Clemson, honestly.
How about throw them in the lake? I mean,
well, they have one of those, so yeah. So I would sell Penn State if I had them at 6. We are on 6, right?
We are on 6.
Okay. All right.
And Bill, tell me about Penn State at number 6.
Well, I'm not crazy about Penn State in general. But look, just focusing on the kids and their coach. I'm sorry, this ain't your year. They're a sell for me. I just don't see enough complete pieces. I don't see enough total football out of Penn State right now to conclusively buy them at 6. So yeah, I'm selling them, but I won't completely kick them out of the top 10. Like Bo, I will put them somewhere behind Ole Miss.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for your insight. And as an aside, I am now looking at Total Football as a domain. See if it's available. We'll see. Jess, what do you have?
And this is a slight sell for me. I do have them just outside my top 10. I'm not buying much of their offense. It's kind of the reverse problem, because if you put Ole Miss offense and Penn State defense, you'd have a team that's a college football playoff team. And imagine James Franklin in the same room as Lane Kiffin. Oh boy, I can't imagine that. But I mean, I trust their defense tremendously. Talk about Joey Porter Jr., absolutely a shutdown corner. He is. Let me check this real quick. He is my quarterback number 4 in the country right now, behind Gonzalez of Oregon, Ringo of Georgia, and Tyreek Stevenson of the Hurricanes. Absolutely great. I think he's going to be a first-round pick. I also like their offensive lineman. He has Olaf Fanashu, I believe his name is. Yeah, Olaf Fanashu. He's very good as well. I just don't think they have enough top-end pieces. That is my concern personally with them. I don't think they have enough on offense. Sure, they put down a beatdown on Auburn in the Plains, but I mean, it's Auburn 2022. It's not an odd year, so I don't trust them enough. What if they kill me against really anybody that's good offensively? They've killed me enough defensively, without question. That's borderline a playoff team by its defensive unit alone. But I don't trust them to consistently turn over short down situations or just consistently get runs. I think they play too safe. And that's an epitome of James Franklin right there. I mean, it's something about that college of late, though. Bill O'Brien came through there, is conservative, and is right as Reinquist with his conservatism. I mean, honestly, that's their problem.
So everybody disagrees with me with Penn State at number 6. We'll see if we get any more agreement with Tennessee at number 7. Bo, Tennessee at 7.
I have Tennessee at 7, so that means it's a hold. So, good job, John.
Or good job, Bo. I mean, come on. Bill, tell me about Tennessee at 7.
Well, I hate Tennessee. I just can't stand them. Because first of all, it's Tennessee. I just hate them because they low down, they dirty, they some snitches. I hate Philip Fulmer. I hate their colors. I'm not a dog person. I just hate Tennessee, man. Like, I hate Neyland Stadium. It looks like a garbage truck workers convention. I'm holding Tennessee at 7.
I was enjoying that. All right, so are you a sell for number 7?
No, I cannot. I cannot abandon the litanies of hate. Sell, Tennessee. I'm sorry.
Oh.
This might fly in the face of all football logic, and we have to think rationally and objectively and dispassionately and analyze plays and schema and coaches and recruiting and NFL options. I hate Tennessee. Sell. How many 1A FBS teams are there? 128. I am selling Tennessee at 129.
131.
131. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Emotional Investor.
That's right.
All right, Jess, tell me what you got there.
I mean, psychology of the marketplace. That's how I used to always say make trading on stocks. I did pretty well with it. I am down on Tennessee because objectively it is very much an air raid heavy offense that I think is limited. I love Booker in terms of what he can do against the small school. This kind of reminds me about, obviously it's not at all the same play style, but in terms of what I think their output can be, of what Ohio State can be. I mean, and that especially you see that from Hooker. We also see it from Cedric Tillman at X. Tillman is pretty outstanding. Big catch radius, huge hands, great ball tracker, good in traffic. Love that. I think he's a borderline first round pick in my opinion. But at the same time, their defense is, and that's not getting enough credit. Why I think the Hobnot nail, nice. But that's going to be what I think an interesting matchup. Georgia can't throw, Tennessee can't defend. Who do you trust right now? Amari Thomas, basically. So he has a good first step. He's a good run defender. I just don't think he has enough around him. Who else do you really trust? Jeremy Banks. He is not consistent enough. Byron Young, not our Byron Young. He's a little bit older. I don't think he's as good in run. I think you can run all over this team. There's just not enough consistency really in their front seven to say, hey, we can stop a running attack. When we face them and inevitably light up a cigar, you're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs run like a man wild in the jungle. It is going to be insane.
So you're going to sell at 7 then? All right.
I got him 9.
Well,
It's close.
What? Okay. Well, before we go any further, let me tell you that I've got just waiting outside my top 10. I've got a Pac-12 team. I've got a Big 12 team. I've got an ACC team and one SEC team. They're just sitting there waiting to jump into the top 10. But my number 8 right now is Clemson. Sorry, Bill.
Clemson's a sell. That's so easy. They can go pound that rock someplace else. Look, the only reason Clemson is good is because they're in the ACC, which is a down league. Every time they have been truly tested, I mean, really, 20 to 30. I mean, I'm sorry. Clemson has a Dabo Swinney problem, and it's not going away anytime soon. He is going to mediocre that team into either a playoff spot that they get promptly blown out of by Georgia or Ohio, or the Kiss Your Sister Bowl of Arizona upstairs VCR Repair College. I am completely selling Clemson at 7, and honestly, I question whether they should be in the top 10. I am looking forward to deeper comments on that, but I'm just not. I'm just not seeing an offensive scheme out of Clemson that is legit, that is a real threat. I said it at the start of the season, and I truly want an answer when it's y'all's turns. Am I wrong in saying that Clemson is stuck in 2017 as far as scheme goes in the year 2022? Don't talk to me about their successes in 2017. They're using something today. It's like using a Core 2 Duo and 4 gigabytes of RAM today. Yeah, it works, but so I am a strong sell Clemson at 7. Don't want any Clemson stock in my portfolio.
Okay. Oh.
So, yes, I got Clemson at 10 for lack of a better option, I guess, at this point. So if I owned them at 7, I would definitely sell because I see 1, possibly 2 upsets on their schedule. And I think one of them is going to be someone that you don't expect, that they're just going to Clemson. Clemson will be Clemsoning back this year at least one time. So,
all right, and Jess.
So is Joseph Nyata healthy at X? That's a big question, right? I know he didn't play a big part last week, but they really got to get these guys some of these weapons. Like, who are you trusting right now? Bo Collins? Antonio Williams, who's kind of been nice, and he took over for Brandon Spector and the slot guy, but their defense is going to have to be it, right? You're not going to expect much from Uyangalale. You're not going to get much out of Shipley or Pace. They really don't have much there. Their line, I really don't trust that many people. Blake Miller's kind of been nice at right tackle. Jordan McFadden's been there freaking forever as a grad kid. Will Putnam's a decent center. But the defense, I mean, really, that's it, right? Brian Breesy, Miles Murphy, Trent Simpson, and Tyler Davis to a lesser extent. The first three are the guys that you need to do it. These are all top 20 kids. They're playing in your front seven. If any of them goes down, because Breesy was hurt pretty recently, if he goes down, you have no shot. I am slightly selling them, but when you have three guys up front like that in a conference like that, you might be able to squeak in because no one's going to be able to really challenge you. But health is key for them, I think, more than most teams, because it is weird to say this about Clemson, but I guess it makes sense because I don't bring in transfers for NIL now. They are thin. They are the anorexic team, and it makes sense too because nobody packs any weight in the ACC.
I will say this: Clemson's offense works when they have a running threat that you have to plan for. Shipley is not that threat. Even with Ugalele and I'm probably still mispronouncing his name. Even with him as a running threat, the combination is not enough to scare me and make me have to, start bringing up my safeties. So I don't care who they have at receiver right now because that won't work if I'm not being threatened by the running game. And okay, let's look at their schedule. They're playing Boston College this week. Then they're playing at Boston College, at Tallahassee the week after for Florida State, and then they've got Syracuse at home. And then in November they're playing Notre Dame and South Bend, Louisville, Miami, and South Carolina at home.
I think they could sweep that. Who really impresses you in that? Syracuse has feasted on weak opponents too, even out of conference. Like, who do you even trust past that point? Florida State? I don't think so. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
I do think they should go to Klubnik, but Dabo won't. Dabo has been so stubborn, even though it won him when he switched from Kelly Bryant, and that took way too long for him to switch off Kelly Bryant in 2018. Like, half the season? Oof.
Yeah, the thing about that is, though, Florida State, Syracuse, Notre Dame, and possibly Louisville or Miami are capable of catching them on the wrong day. That's the thing.
Yeah, I would like to see Mario go in there and mess them up and with the buses, like, honestly.
So they may be an easy shoe into the playoffs, but they gave up 45 to Wake.
Yeah, I mean, Wake has an underrated offense. I think the fact they stuck around with NC State was telling. And how often you say something is telling in a top 10 matchup game? But NC State is a team that's been getting away with nail biter wins, and it was ranked higher than Kansas when they shouldn't have been. But the fact that they hung with them for about, I'd say 40, 45 minutes is just unacceptable for a team that probably I think has a good chance to contend for number 4. And I've said it before the season. I'm going to stick with this prediction. I think they get the number 4 seed in the playoff. I said that before the year, and I stick by that conviction. So right now I sell them because of what they've done, but I think the posters are not going to see it that way. So it depends how you see it, right? Because from my perspective, sell. From the posters' perspective and ESPN's perspective, it's going to be a buy. So,
well, how many undefeated teams do we have? We know that number is going to be cut in half probably in the next 2-3 weeks, and by the end of the season there may be 1, 2 at the most. I mean, attrition, having a bad game, all of those, getting beaten by a rival who has nothing to lose. People are going to start dropping, and we're about to start finding out. I mean, September's over. October is when people start to get a little bit serious about this, and you start hitting your rivals. All I can say is we'll see.
Undefeated left, by the way. 16.
What's that?
16 undefeated left. Yep.
That seems a little high for this time of the year, but
yeah, it does, right? Yeah.
By the time November rolls around, there might be 4. All right, let's move along. We're at number 9, and my number 9 at the moment is USC. Bill.
Never bought USC. Never. No, I never bought USC. Look, it's a forced meme. Okay, I'm selling USC. Who is USC feasted on? Who have they played? What scheme have you seen out of USC that has everybody stopping and talking, and Feinbaum giving 2 9-minute segments out of his weekly shows to talk about with USC? I'll wait. Nothing. USC is a forced meme because they played a bunch of nobodies. So I'm selling USC.
Okay, Bo.
Yeah, I'm with Bill on this one. I have no confidence in USC at all. I just don't see it, and I don't want any of it. And just please take it. In fact, I'll sell it at a discount. How about that?
So that's a hard sell. All right, Jess. Fill us in, will you?
That's a Bear point. 21. No way on their defense. Love Addison. Addison's great. I think they have 2 draft players, like 2 NFL players of the future. You have Jordan Addison, of course, as I mentioned, and Rory at guard. Who the heck do you trust on that defense right now? Phil Padu? Really? I mean, Shane Lee? Nick Figueroa? Really? Brendan Pilley? I mean, I really have to go down my depth chart to think about these guys. These are guys that they've developed who are really about where they expect them to be. And this is still a team that's, again, top heavy. They're the Clemson West with less preaching. But honestly, it is frustrating to see this because, yeah, you might want to see them do well because it represents a good thing, at least from the league's eyes, I think. That, the transfer portal works to help teams. I mean, granted, preaching isn't always a bad thing, but you know what I mean. It's not Dabo out there. It's Lincoln Marley. I don't think they have enough. If Jordan Addison goes down, they have nothing. And you consider who they played. Oh, they struggle with Oregon State. That's not going to cut it either, honestly. Who are you trusting with this team? I know I said that 2 seconds ago, but right now, Mario Williams, Brennan Rice, I mean, these guys are really not all that strong. Travis Dye ain't that guy, guys. They throw him out way too much. I mean, you have Solomon Byrd at rush, Eric Gentry at Mike. I think they have too many guys between Shane Lee. They don't have anybody that really stands out. Their transfers are transfers mostly for a reason. It's not guys who are successful. Jordan Addison accepted again, of course, but they don't get impact transfers. And that's not a slight on Caleb Williams. It's just, I don't think you have enough right now. And if any of these guys go down, I'm trying to think about who they brought in for transfers for backups. Like Tyrone Taleni to back up Dejon Benton at tackle. I don't get it. I don't trust their corners because right now you have Mikey Blackman, Hire Wright, Jalen Smith. I don't trust really Smith or Wright, Smith and nickel especially. They don't develop guys. This is not. I mean, this has been an issue for them. Granted, it's Riley's first year, but this is the team without a defensive identity. Even though that's as much as they want to play, they play a 3-3-5 and a 4-2-5. When you can't decide on a scheme that is your base concept. I'm not talking amoeba defense, which is great, and that's like a 3-3-3 in the box. But when you can't decide between a 3-3-5 and a 4-2-5 consistently, you don't know what the hell you have. And what they don't have is, I think, enough. It's repetitive, it's true, but dang it, that's what I think. I would sell the hell out of them.
Sell the hell out. Oh, got it. All right. So looking at their schedule, next 2 weeks they've got Washington State, and then they're at number 11 Utah. We may find out who they are really fast. And then they have Arizona, Cal, and Colorado, but they finish up at UCLA and Notre Dame at home.
Man,
and Notre Dame's not a great team, but they will, they will challenge you. I'm almost thinking of them as like, what would I say? A computer generated character. What's the word I'm looking for here, Bill?
An NPC.
An NPC. Notre Dame is my NPC. That if you're not up, if they can beat you. So, but if you don't play well.
If Mike Leake was still there at Wazoo, they would get exposed. Honestly.
Well, I mean, the one thing that stands out to me is they are leading the league in interceptions. They have 12 out of what, 4 games? Out of 5 games. So that's just a little more than 2 per game. They have, since they've got into conference play, it's tapered. But yeah, they're opportunistic. They're giving up. I think they're giving up plays, and they're taking chances. And
yeah, they are. That's just it, though. Teams are not afraid to target them, and for good reason. These guys are getting jumpos. They're not even like, this is not skill picks. This is not Patrick Surtain out there. This is just playing jumbo and hope you win. Like, I mean, this is the casino. Oh, I hope it comes up red.
Let it ride.
Yeah.
All right, and okay. Let me tell you, the guys I have sitting right outside the top 10. I have Utah, Mississippi State, Wake, and TCU. But my number 10 is Oklahoma State. Bill.
I'm out of things that sound smart to say, so I'm just going to say bye, Oklahoma State.
All right. And Bo.
Yeah, same. I would buy Oklahoma State. I have them at 6. So hey, if I can get him at 10, give me some.
All right, Jess.
So I'm not a believer in their top end talent. I'm not too big on Spencer Sanders. Trace Ford's probably my favorite guy of theirs. He's developed kind of nicely. He's a 3-star coming in by 247 a few years ago. I don't think they do anything especially well. Well, and I should say well relatively to that kind of field. I would sell them. I would put them really more like in the mid-teens. I actually have them at 15 right now. I don't like their efficiency necessarily on offense. It is a top 20 offense to me. Their defense is a little bit below that. But for me to have that in the top 10, I have to have one kind of unit that stands out. And of course, it doesn't really have to be both. I mean, I talk about a team like, let's see. I'm trying to think of a good example here. Let's see. Oklahoma is probably my best example. I know they're 3-2, but they don't have a good defense. I really trust their offense. I know they're 3-2. But my point stands. To be in the top 10, you almost always need an elite unit. The only exception I can think to that I have in my top 10 right now is Utah, where I have 13th in offense, 20th in defense. You can't be both like at 15 or below. That's basically the threshold. Granted, it's not a perfect rule, but I'm just giving a good generalization here. So.
Got it. Okay, guys. That wraps up buy, sell, hold.
All right. As always, of course, your money is your own, and invest with caution, ladies and gentlemen. We do not yet have a cryptocurrency for the show. We'll let you know when Houndstooth coin can be hashed. So this week, we face a broken and dispirited A&M, who will belly crawl into Bryant-Denny Stadium and beg us not to hurt them too badly. A paean that I hope Nick Saban studiously ignores. I think Nick will hold Bryce out, even if he's at 99.9%. I think Nick will hold Bryce out. One, it'll give Milroe reps, and more reps under fire is a good thing, particularly against an A&M, which the FPI, St. Brand, forgive me, is currently at 3.6% chance to win for A&M. So where I am on this is I think I'm feeling like something like a 42-28 Bama. Just kind of based on some of the ticky-tack shit we still do, some of the mistakes we still make. If we go into the third quarter like we third quartered this last week, I may lose the rest of my hair. But yeah, I'm feeling like a 42-28 level game, maybe 21-42. TJP is very angry at me for that. Just based on occasional defensive laziness in the back end of the game. But I think we win handily. Anybody at all? John, you've been putting me on the spot. John.
Oh, thank you, sir. Okay. So we are at the moment 24-point favorites, and the over/under is 51. That puts us puts the game at about 38-14. I'm gonna say 31-10.
All right. Jess?
Yeah, so we're talking about predictions here. Coming soon to this show. We don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm gonna try to share my screen and show how you can make good bets. Basically, we're going to call it not just a guess. Basically, it's going to be calculated. We are going to be digging for value. We don't necessarily know if we're going on the first time because it is going to be live. It's going to be like we're hunting for the gold here. So it is going to be part of how we come up with equations. I come up with the composite score, and it's really cool stuff like that. So you get to see the method to my madness. And it does work for any sport, but we can talk about football specifically, I think. So that does help. But in my case, my score is subject to change. Don't lock this in on certain channels if you know who you are. But I would say my final right now would be 38 to... I'd say 38 to why can't I know? 38 to 14 right now. That'd be my guess. I think the thing is too, Alabama on social media, their football department specifically, the official one, was teasing, hey, we had a special quarterback that they didn't show on the camera. And I'm like, well, wait, they're showing the quarterback calling out the calls. It was pretty distinctively Bryce. And at one point, for like one frame, they showed that there was another number 9 on the field. Now, that could have been Battle, of course. But, like, that's kind of interesting to me. So if you're going to throw that in there, I think they are going to go with Bryce. I think they're going to have a very short leash with him because it helps that A&M is not good this year. So I think they maybe start him, but they don't use him primarily, if that makes sense. Almost as a decoy within the game because people are going to think, oh, God, it's Bryce. And then Jimbo adjusts like that, but surprise, it's actually not.
Sure. Like with Bryce coming out helmet on in the second half after spending however long he did, a frighteningly long amount of time in the tent. You know, he walked out and even the announcers are like, well, I guess Bryce is coming out. And no, of course it was Milroe.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be a bit longer than that. Maybe like a quarter and a half. Probably not more than that. Of course, if the game script requires it, they probably will keep him in longer. But I think their plan is to, put him in there for 20 minutes, get it up to anywhere between 2 and 4 scores, call that a day, give it to Milroe, have fun, and not hand off Tor immediately. Not at that range. But you got the idea.
Right. So, Bo, what do you think?
I think I'm disappointed in all of you. It's 49-10, and Gibbs has 200 yards rushing because Texas A&M has 0 rush defense. It's somewhere in like the 90s.
Yeah, their rush defense is not good.
So, it doesn't really matter who plays quarterback at this point. They're just not good.
Curious to see how they do against a heavy front, though. They're not good, but they do play a heavy front.
That's true. Okay, so my biggest caveat is not who plays quarterback; it's who plays center.
I heard it's Stalcourt. That's what I've been hearing. That they sent him out there. Yeah, that's really disappointing.
Okay. Can I adjust my prediction?
No.
Okay. All right, that's it.
All right, John. What are you thinking? Any closing thoughts?
If it's Dalcourt, that's a little disappointing. I'm not sure what we're doing there because that other guy's playing way better.
McLaughlin?
I'm sorry?
McLaughlin?
Yes. Yeah.
They have the snaps being online because you can teach that. Like, come on.
Yeah, this far in the season, you get kind of conservative with that kind of thing, but
You know,
the blocking is so much better. Put him under center then. I really.
yeah.
I mean, we could go under center for a while.
Hmm.
I don't. I mean, if he can, that you can run with that guy. We'll see. If Dalcourt can handle outside zone, should still work with Dalcourt against the heavy front, but inside zones may be a little bit of a pain. I'm sticking with 31-10.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So there you have our predictions. I'm thinking a very heavy shootout-ish kind of game with some trashy ticky-tack nonsense, making A&M look better on paper than they actually are, but they will not be. Bo is or was scolding us until he found out that Dalcourt is centering, and now he wants to go back on it. But hey, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. John has got a fairly conservative look, and Jess smells blood in the water, and I'm here for it. So that's our look this week. Next week is hate week. Begin the litanies of hatred against the foes in orange. So I'm looking forward to that. And also, go ahead.
Yes, this will be quick. So I was checking with my injury source thing. It says yesterday, just past noon yesterday Eastern, Young was limited in practice on Wednesday, which is something that I don't think a lot of people know about. But
I did not know.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that is certainly literally an 11th hour news flash there. So we'll see. We shall definitely see. But also what we'll see next week, win, lose, or draw, folks, we have the guy behind Bama Rewind, which if you're a fan of Alabama football, I don't care from what era, I don't care if you still think, Frank Wade is the coach. This guy has got a game summary, and by summary, I mean usually anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, just the great plays on YouTube. Bama Rewind is the channel. It is fantastic. All Alabama fans should be subscribed to it because they are great summary. And I don't mean summaries like he talks over them or pauses the screen and draws on it. No. They are just nice, neat, bite-sized approach. You can watch an entire Alabama season in an afternoon. He's going to be here. The man behind the videos is going to be here, and we're going to talk about how he's gotten some of those great archives together and all kinds of fun Bama stuff while we do the cool breakdowns of the beatdown that we're going to put on A&M this coming Saturday. So be there for that next Thursday at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, and I think we'll all be here. I'll be here. You guys will be here. And it'll be a lot of fun. So in parting, anyone else got anything? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone?
No, I'm good. Good show, Bill. Thanks.
I think my YouTube video sums it all up for next week.
Yes. You guys want to see some wonderful vocalizing? Go check us out on Twitter at Bama Dad Jokes. Jess, wonderful as always to have you here. The brains of the outfit really is our Jess. So everyone have an absolutely stellar week and weekend. Roll Tide, sit back, crack open a cold one, and watch the Tide beat up on A&M. And we are out of here. Peace.